Leadership 2030, I think, is a book about a perfect storm. It's a book about a rare combination of circumstances that dramatically change and complicated how leaders will need to lead in the future.
Let's talk a bit more about the sort of the background before we get into the individual areas of the book. And I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about where this came from, because you're talking about the fact that you discovered something which you suddenly realized there was a nub there of leadership and how that was changing and how it was going to look in, say, 10, 15 years' time. Did that come about from your everyday workings in the company, or was that something of an interest that you had before? How did it all come about?
I think it's a combination. So my background, my academic background is in philosophy and sociology, and that's why I'm interested in those questions, say, anyway, right? But then later on, as a consultant and as an advisor to organizations and executives, I had many conversations with people in around 2009, 2010, which brought up many, difficult issues for them that they didn't really understand. And my experience as a leader myself in that, as a line manager at that time, was quite similar. I mean, if you just look back to 2010, it was really, in a way, it was an interesting year. Yeah, it was the year many of us will remember because we were all stuck at airports, because this Icelandic volcano with the unpronounceable name erupted. It was also the year when the International Energy Agency published that peak oil, which is the year when the highest amount of crude oil is extracted, was already in 2006. At the same time, it was the year when China was starting to massively invest in Western Europe. It was the year when Volvo, which was the pride of the Swedish auto industry, as we all know, was taken over by a gentleman called Li Shufu, who is the owner of Geely, a Chinese car company, who, by the way, just a few months ago also bought the London cab company. And Boris Johnson said he was delighted that Geely rescued the black cabs in London. Can you imagine this 10 or 15 years before? No, nobody can. I mean, things really changed. And then on another level, more and more clients I talked with, and also personal experience, was that we have to deal with people who are Generation Y, young, gifted, well-educated people, who are at the same time very ambitious, but also want to have very high salaries, but have specific ideas about work-life balance, for example. So it was a bunch of different things that we all saw in that time. And my feeling was, and that's what I also learned from conversations with people, nobody really understood patterns. I mean, people saw that many different things were going on, that the leadership challenge for all of us as leaders was drastically more difficult than it seemed to be a few years before, right? But none of us really understood what is behind that. Is there something systematic behind it? Are there any patterns that we can analyze? And if so, if we have analyzed them, can we draw conclusions that help us to get a grip on things, to get our arms around things? And that's what was really the motivation for doing this. Why? Because I think it's my experiences and that of many colleagues and leaders that life just got more difficult, and we wanted to understand why.